I'm not black, I'm OJ. Now, whether or not O.J. Simpson said these exact words, because it is disputed, this sentiment is consistent with organizational research on low status or members of low status categories. So research on social identity, impression management, and self-disclosure in the workplace explains how and when members of low status social categories intentionally downplay membership in these categories at work to enhance their belonging, to enhance their status, to enhance perceptions of their competence and professionalism. And also there's research indicating that exceptional members or even just regular members of low status categories may choose to identify with the higher status group and pursue individual mobility, especially when they perceive group boundaries to be permeable. And the implications are that, of course, for the individuals themselves, these strategies may be incredibly successful. But for the group, what they do is they reinforce the status order. They reinforce the low status of that group. They also encourage subtyping, which is roping off, sectioning off individual members and saying, well, they're not really representative of that group. And it also reinforces this idea that somehow being exceptional or different, supposedly exceptional or different, allows you to transcend categorization. So I'm not black, I'm OJ, or I don't really see Beyonce as black, which is what some people outside of the category often say. So organizational research, however, devotes much less attention to the dynamics surrounding people who would be the opposite of OJ, people who are just as successful, arguably just as transcendent, but who, on the other hand, say, actually, I am one of them, a term that I'm calling corrective recategorization. So Deion Sanders, a successful two-sport athlete, chose to become the football coach of Jackson State University, a historically black institution. Eddie George, another incredibly successful NFL player who got his MBA at Kellogg after retiring, so he's now a successful businessman, became the head coach of the Tennessee State University football team, also another HBCU. Philanthropist, billionaire Robert Smith, of course, famously donated over $30 million to Morehouse College. None of these men were previously associated with historically black institutions, but these actions definitely highlighted their blackness if you weren't sure of their allegiance beforehand. Beyonce, in her Coachella performance, chose an HBCU motif, and she really upset people at the 2016 Super Bowl when she paid honor to the Black Panthers. And Meghan Markle, at her royal wedding to Prince Harry, had a black gospel choir, a black minister, a black cellist, right? So again, if you didn't know, then she certainly highlighted her membership in this category. Now, a natural question for researchers is, well, what predicts whether you are an OJ or a Deion? And some existing theories would say your high identification with that low status category may play a role, but I'm actually more interested in the broader potential of this corrective recategorization. And again, because research tends to focus on dominant categories, the natural thing might be, okay, well, the high status group members definitely going to experience a lot of dissonance. They did, just Google the SNL skit on Beyonce's Super Bowl, right? So this dissonance might lead to the search for information that could potentially lead to a shift in perception. But I actually think the power lies more in the way this could affect the members of the low status category themselves and the way they see themselves in their category, and how it can lead to increased esteem for the group, which could potentially enhance solidarity. Someone earlier said, rather than divide and conquer, like refine and something, but when they said that, I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. It leads to increased visibility of the low status group, attract resources to this group, and also individual members of the group will further invest in the group, as illustrated by Travis Hunter, who was the #1 football recruit, and he blew up the sports world when he chose to go to Jackson State to work under Deion Sanders and to decommit from Florida State. And so this just highlights also, what happens to dominant institutions if they then have to compete for these stars and they're not guaranteed to have these stars of low status groups join their organizations. So I see this corrective categorization as potentially one small step in a broader set of steps to kind of disrupt the status order, in part because it will induce members of low status categories to take the resources, perhaps from the master, but use them to build their own house.